What's up, my comic book brothers and my comic book sisters from another mister? Today we're going to do a full story review of Spawn, issue number 314 through 317, the Chain Gang story arc, and in my personal opinion, one of the best story arcs of Spawn, in my personal opinion. Not the best, just one of the best that I've read, and I'm excited to get into the content. Now, before we get into the content, timestamps are in description if you wish to go from issue to issue. Also, link in description if you wish to add any of the comic books in this review to your comic book collection. Support the art, support the industry. And also, don't forget to check out RatedComics.com to add some amazing and really cool looking Rated Comics exclusives to your comic book collection as well. And also, if you like the content we're throwing up, you know what to do. Like the video and subscribe to this channel. Here at Rated Comics, we do awesome comic book reviews, comic book related content with the occasional comic book giveaway. All that being said, let's get into the content. Before we get into this new story arc, previously on the Cult of Omega story arc, Spawn and Overkill travel to a mysterious island to face off against a powerful foe. Unbeknownst to them, he was waiting and exploding a full force attack with its full might. Before uttering a word, Monolith charges himself at Spawn, and it's focused its 3-ton frame on another target. Before it was Overkill, where he just brutally annihilated him. Now it's Spawn's turn, and Spawn's body, already weakened from a past battles, is hit from the impact of a giant charging rhino. And for the first time that he can remember, his breath is literally taken away. And Monolith tells Spawn, "You're lucky I can't kill you. The master wants to do that himself." As Spawn reels his mind darts, wondering who this creature is, his chest has a mark of a Hellspawn. But nothing about this Monolith seems vaguely familiar. Is it a Spawn? If so, why doesn't Monolith recognize he's fighting one of his own kind? Because Spawns just don't fight or kill other Spawns, as that was established in the early 300s of Spawns, but that was when Spawn killed Medieval Spawn before Medieval Spawn took over Mark's body, and now Mark is Medieval Spawn. I did do a review on Spawn issue 314, but I want to do this again. And also, I'm doing all Spawn content from 296, 297, which is the history of Spawn, all the way up to its current 300 mark. So, hey, if you're the first time here, like and subscribe to this channel. You got a lot of Spawn content to catch up on. Unfortunately for Spawn, he won't be given the time to piece any of this insanity together, who this Monolith is and why. Because he's pounded and hammered in a matter of seconds into unconsciousness. The speed of this defeat is stunning. Now, Monolith needs to finish his mission, which is to bring Spawn back to his master. That means returning to the island in the distance. It will take him almost an hour walking along the sea bottom to that landmark. But you know what? Something else happens, and he leaves behind a damage and waste of his battle, which that's Overkill, and the light beam ceases to be beeping. Now, Monolith and Spawn are teleported, and the teleport sequence is complete. The agent and his target have been transported as requested, and they secure Spawn immediately. These agents tell Monolith Spawn will be wakened soon. They have exactly 3 minutes to confine him. So, and one of the agents like, I thought this thing could hold its breath underwater forever. It only breathes underwater for an hour, but it's too stupid to know that. So we had to get him teleported here before he drowns himself. So they put on a sonar helmet on Spawn, and then they fire it up. And they have to get this bad boy on before Spawn awakes. And Spawn's about to wake up. The sonar helmet is put on, and they begin the sequence. And just like that, Spawn is rendered useless. Spawn is waking up, and they clamp the pressure to 8,000 psi, and you know what? They commence that thing now. The machinery hums for a brief moment before unleashing a sonic wave, delivering a mind-numbing assault on Spawn's entire biological nervous system. The pain and chemicals now pulsing throughout his body are meant to disrupt and deter any attempt to escape. Though the sonic waves are nearly silent and undetectable to the human ears, every lab worker hears the muffled screams of the prisoner before him, and they disengage chamber and remove the mask. Spawn is obviously hurt, and Spawn is like, is that the best you got? And Monolith is like, actually, we barely begun. You have no idea what's in store for you, but now that your cleansing is already over, we can ready you to properly meet the master. And Spawn's like, yes, and my master soon, your kind. My kind, says Spawn, you're scarred like a Hellspawn too. And Monolith is like, do you even know what's coming? What you and your pathetic soldiers are about to encounter? And Spawn's like, if you're brave enough, come closer and I'll tell you what I know. So Monolith does come closer. Spawn whispers something in his ear, then boom! Like a head-on collision, the headbutt gashes Monolith's forehead. That was a mistake, he says. Whoop! Punches him in the side. You know that impact has to really do some detrimental damage. But guess what, Monolith says? You'll be punished for that, along with so many other sins. The cloth sack he puts over Spawn's head is meant to humiliate him more than serve any practical purpose. In the morning, you'll meet our master, says Monolith. Chemicals hiss from his tiny nozzles embedded inside the mask, covering Spawn's face. And though he rarely requires sleep, Spawn quickly succumbs and falls into darkness. I thought you'll be more resilient than this, says Omega Spawn. It's why I took so many precautions in place. But look at you, how weak you are. I thought by now you learned how to ration your powers, not deplete them so foolishly with Clown. Was that worth it? And that's a reference to Spawn issue 300 and 301, which we did do reviews on, and you can check that out as well. Were you mad, says Omega. His voice booms, literally shaking the very ground beneath him. He has rarely needed or wanted to spend time on Earth, not when there's an entire universe to ravage. Yet he sits here having to waste his precious time navigating a way back off this planet. He is a murderer of entire planets, but only those that help build his energy. For those actions, he's been christened. He is the Omega Spawn. And he continues his dialogue. Dozens of Hellspawns have been hunted and killed, doing what they were ordered to. Not one of them ever panicked like you did, to the point of acting recklessly. They couldn't reverse the damage you created. All that power you did detonate in your symbiote to kill Clown, there's no going back from that. I've tried. It's not reversible. We're all in prison on this planet, all of us. Even those that want nothing to do with it. But if I'm going to be stuck here, then I'm going to rule this planet. Every inch of it. So please tell me you at least had some sense of what would actually happen. You didn't really think you'd be able to contain the fallout, did you? And Spawn's like, I knew that explosion would happen. I knew a few might fall through. A few? It wasn't a few, it was hundreds of us, says Omega Spawn. And not just Hell Spawns, everything. Now each of them is either confused, mad, or planning how to become the new king, the ruler of Earth, or any other piece of the dimension they can get their hands on. You've unleashed a chaos you'll never get under control, ever again. Everyone with any craving to dominate will die trying to show that they should be the dominant one, regardless where they were born. Heaven, hell, earth, they're all going to try and annihilate the competition. And it's already begun. Let me show you the first of the traitors. And heavy gears begin opening the ground in front of the blindfolded Spawn. The slabs are at least 3 feet thick, but it's the endless blackness falling straight down that makes the dark abyss so ominous. Every Spawn that's ever lived, he's tried to con, wanting them to believe they needed his help, when the only thing he ever wanted was their symbiote, their power. And that person was Cogliosio. And Omega Spawn continues his dialogue. I didn't care who conquered Earth. There were far more planets that had more value to rape. That's exactly what I was doing when you tore open time. I was minutes from my victory. Instead, I got vaporized, landing in some ravaged jungle needing to be recovered. The fishermen I saw delivered me to this island. I killed them, of course, but they served their purpose by helping me hide. But Cogliosio found me, wanting to steal my powers and kill me. He didn't stand a chance. Jumping around time, all those centuries must have done something to his mind. But I didn't kill him. You know why? Because somewhere in his brain there's knowledge that's been hidden. Knowledge that I can use. Unfortunately, he's not quite willing to share that info, despite all of his torture. So down a hole 1,000 feet deep, you'll find a weak, pitiful old man cowering in some corner. Which brings us, Spawn, to why you're here. You know that Cogliosio created the first Spawn symbiote costume he ever tried wearing for a time before Malboja stripped it for him because he couldn't be trusted. And that's foreshadowing Spawn issue 331, which I did do a review on this channel. And I'll put the link in description as well. Unfortunately, he's slowly losing his grip with reality, so I need those secrets now! And he grabs Spawn before he embraces that insanity completely. You're the one who's going to extract that for me. And if you think about varying from that mission, remember those sonic waves, the one that caused you so much pain, Spawn. This entire island is wired with that capability. So if you're thinking about escaping, you're just a push of a button for being dropped to your knees. You've got one chance. Either make Cog talk or I'll start to burn things, beginning with cities that shelter the most humans. Now crawl into that hole and bring me what I want. Before that happens, Omega Spawn suddenly feels a sharp pain in his leg. Who dares, as his sword impales the back of his leg. And seconds from now, he'll painfully receive his answer, and that's Medieval Spawn about to go into the attack. And that's where we end this issue of Spawn, issue number 314. Dude, obviously this story arc is starting off with a banger, and I'm loving it. What a way to go into it. And this is not the issue you want to jump into Spawn on, but if you're a collector of comics, you gotta collect this issue because this is the first full appearance of Omega Spawn, and I believe Spawn issue 313 is the first appearance of Monolith. But dude, I am going to do the story arc on 315, 316, and I already started with 317. So we're going to have a whole bunch of Spawn content coming up, and any other story arcs you guys want me to cover with Spawn, comment below, let me know. With all that being said, link in description if you wish to add this comic book to your comic book collection. Support the art, support the industry. Previously in Spawn 314, Overkill has been decimated, left for dead, and Spawn has been captured by Omega, who then reveals that he's not the only familiar face on the island prison. Arrogant Omega Spawn had let his guard down, and because he let his guard down, Medieval Spawn was able to go in and impale one of his eyes with this sword. The 25-foot monster had coerced everyone to serve him with fear, never once contemplating for any outcome other than ones he had planned. Other than Spawn, who he had imprisoned, who else would stand against him? No one. Or so he thought. Like an explosion has gone off, the ground shakes as both combatants hit the ground simultaneously. Whatever you are, you're dead, says Omega Spawn. And then with the mere thought, the sword flies back to the hand of its rightful master, Medieval Spawn. Then do it. Slay me where I stand. I've grown weary of your idle threats, says Medieval. Spawn, to your feet. Spawn goes to his feet, takes off the cloth over his head, and he's like, dude, I thought I killed you. You did, but we'll talk about that later. And that's referencing Spawn issue 305, which we did do a review on. For now, the enemy before us needs our attention. I only wounded him. And Omega Spawn lets out a blast, and on cue, he fires huge slabs of debris modified with deadly spikes. Medieval Spawn tells Spawn to grab onto his sword before he's too late. And Spawn's like, what? Just grab it, says Medieval Spawn. Half-blind Omega rallies his powers, one which creates a vacuum pulling our heroes towards potential impalement. Before he can get swept away, Spawn latches onto the sword. Medieval Spawn isn't afforded the same option. Dig into something, says Spawn. I can't, says Medieval Spawn. Spawn lashes out, catching the armored warrior before it's too late. Omega increases the force of his suction as Spawn feels his grip slowly giving away. Come, let me feast on the two of you, says Omega. He opens his mouth wide like a great white shark. Release me, says Medieval. No, says Spawn, you have to. It's our only chance. So Spawn does that. He releases Medieval Spawn. In battle and war, if you're losing to an enemy that's half blind, there's only one move left. Completely blind him. And Medieval Spawn does that with his cape. The monster wars like some wild beast. Medieval Spawn has created his distraction, but now they need to take advantage of it. Spawn, let go, says Medieval Spawn. He does. Instinctively, Spawn knows what he has to do next. His limbs begin to morph as he rockets towards his target and impales him in his chest. Our hero dives away, giving away his giant claws, impaling inside of his wounded chest. Wounded. The problem is, they now have a wounded animal for an enemy that's lashing out in sheer anger. He rips the cape, starts going away, and tells him, you failed like Calicioso. You don't have the strength. None of you ever did. He slams Medieval Spawn to the ground. We need to retreat, says Medieval. No, says Spawn. This has just begun. Spawn had planned his own escape before knowing Medieval Spawn would arrive. Though it cost him the life of Overkill, Spawn began to bond with Monolith the moment they went under the ocean, and see previously in Spawn 314 how that went down, because we did review that as well. By the time they landed on Omega's island, the two of them already had hatched their mission. One last whisper, one final instruction is all they needed to set their plan in motion, and Monolith has played his part to perfection. Like so many others pulled into a time rift, Monolith was trying to understand what was happening, but Omega was hunting him, thinking he could easily make the disoriented Monolith into his own servant. But like any slave, you do what you need to survive. You bide your time until a clear path presents itself, and then you claim what is rightfully yours. He's growing, says Spawn. We need him crippled. You've got 15 seconds to figure out how to do that, says Spawn. And Medieval Spawn has a plan. He fought 100 wars, fought 1,000 enemies. And with the pressure of time against him, he confidently understands that although he had 15 seconds, he only needed 9 of them. And he slices off his hand. And by slicing off his hand, a torrent of necroplasm harvested from the souls of his millions of victims shoots wild streams from his amputated arm. Monolith is like, we need to live. And he is scorching in pain. And Spawn's like, we can't leave, not without Medieval Spawn. Then one fire flash strikes Monolith full force, instantly beginning to burn him like a shower of acid. This brother bleeds acid like Alien. With the force of a car collision, Spawn smashes into the orange barbarian, toppling him out of the flesh-eaten rays. Unfortunately, it's too late as Monolith lays down dead. But Spawn catches his breath, then turns his full fury towards the Omega Spawn. Without breaking stride, he scoops up a piece of pod which earlier had painfully been holding him captive. Weaving and cutting through the maelstrom, Spawn gets a fix on his other companion. I need to stop his bleeding or we'll never get out of here, says Spawn. Grab his chains and fucking bring him down, he says to Medieval Spawn. Again, Medieval Spawn doesn't hesitate as he again summons everything from his body, then yanks as hard as he can to bring down the Omega Spawn. The behemoth fell again. Spawn races to the tallest pile of rock and debris he can find, then catapults himself even higher, all the while merging his unlimited necro powers with those of the sonic pod. He unleashes that combo of energy towards the bleeding stump of an arm. Omega Spawn seals it, burning flesh, tendons, and muscles to seal it shut. What's our next move, says Medieval Spawn. He's not gonna stay down. I know, and Monolith didn't make it, so we're on our own. The question is, how do they stop an unstoppable force? This brother is not going down without ease. Omega Spawn, he's been cut, sliced, and fell multiple times onto sharp, broken shards of rock and boulders. He now has one arm, one eye, a gaping chest wound, and he still will not relent. I thought you could be useful, says Omega. You could help me break Caliciosta, but now you're just like him. You all are. This planet has always shown its weakness. With that, he raises his one good arm, triggering a trap. As Omega had boasted, this island had been set up to blanket its entire mass. Screeching sound waves batter our heroes with an intensity that feels like their bodies are about to explode. Wave upon wave, they're bombarded with the sound that deafens all else. And because of that, none of them hear the haunting wails reverberating from the dark, bottomless pit holding Caliciosta, nor do they see the thick black ooze slithering from the pit like 1,000 snakes freed from their cage. It breathes with the coursing, scratching timber. It looks partially human, but it is about to show the world its only nature is that of revenge, and that is Plague Spawn emerging from the ground. And that's where we end this issue of Spawn, issue number 315. Okay, this is obviously one big ass fight between Spawn, Medieval Spawn, and Omega Spawn, and we still got some more action left with. I love the cliffhanger. I love how this is the first appearance. I believe this is the first appearance of Plague Spawn. If it's a key issue, definitely add it to your comic book collection. Link in description if you wish to add this comic book to your comic book collection. Support the art, support the industry, and also here at RatedComics.com. Hey, we got amazing comics, exclusives, ratios, take your pick if you want to add some amazing comics to your collection. But with all that being said, hidden away from the world, Omega Spawn has been amassing power and prisoners. Trapped on Earth, he seeks a way to go back to the stars. Unfortunately for him, Al Simmons has arrived to stop his ass. But with the help of former enemies, an unbeknown to behemoths be enough to stop Omega and the oncoming plague. So we begin this issue with this monitor, and this monitor is indicating these 3 red dots, which indicate the presence of Spawn, Medieval Spawn, and Omega Spawn. But this unknown blip, this white unknown, is what it is, and it's the 4th pop-up that came out of nowhere, and there wasn't supposed to be a 4th, but here it is, crawling on all 4s as the creature slowly moves into the daylight. Parts of his body even pour across everything in its path, spreading itself in every direction at once, like some black inky tar, or maybe more like some animalistic disease bent on consuming its prey, its host, like some kind of plague Spawn. And though a barrage of sonic waves fill the air with a pitch of 10,000 decibels, this thing seems unfazed by it. The sun rays appear more problematic, but only for a moment, as this plague quickly adapts. The same cannot be said for either Spawn or his medieval counterpart. Both Spawn and Medieval Spawn feel like their heads are about to explode as the pressure from the sound waves intensifies like a swimmer going deeper in the water. They scream in pain. But Omega Spawn's like, let's end your pain right freaking now. As Omega Spawn rears back, the plague lurches and bares its teeth, summoning a power that stops Omega's fist dead in its tracks before crushing its two spawns. Omega churns, spotting this new adversary not far away. How many of you Hell Spawns have come to this fucking place? I added that part in there. I guess it was more dramatic, but anyways, it just slipped out. The black creature doesn't move. Instead, it gives an intense glare, signaling to Omega it's unafraid of him. It grows spikes out of his back, letting him know I'm ready to throw down. The intensity grows louder like an animal caught in some painful hunter's trap. Then its chest heaves as it draws one last gasp of breath, allowing the sonic waves to be only more dominant. It unleashes a sickening shriek, the sound of a soul tortured, unwilling to suppress its pain any longer. A sound that has the same excruciating effect on Omega as the sonic waves have on Spawn and Medieval Spawn. Then the scream doubles in ferocity. Dude, somebody's head's about to explode and some of these ears need to be bleeding right now. And as this scream intensifies, it's causing shockwaves to shake the entire island and sending riptides shooting out into a 20-mile radius. Stop, says Omega Spawn. I can give you power enough to rule at my side, to dominate this planet, but not if we're enemies. We crave the same thing, to be their masters. Suddenly, everything goes silent. What is that? Is that a Hell Spawn, says Medieval Spawn, as they kind of recover from getting their ears, like eardrums all messed up? Whatever it is, says Spawn, this island and Omega, I think it just shut them down. And Medieval Spawn's like, I've never seen one like that. Me neither, says Spawn, but Omega said hundreds fell through the time rip, and we don't know whose side he's on. As they turn around, Medieval notices that these soldiers are flanking them, and he tells Spawn to get behind them. They got weapons, and even though Medieval Spawn is newly released into this world, he's seen the kind of damage that this modern warfare can cause. They blast off. Though weak, Spawn knows he has to act as he summons his cape to reappear. We need cover. You're not ready for that kind of firepower yet. I'll follow your lead, says Medieval Spawn as he creates a necroplasm shield to ricochet the bullets. Now, as Spawn and Medieval Spawn are dealing with the soldiers, we go back to Omega Spawn and Plague. And originally, Omega's initial plan was to only imprison Spawn in his desire to use Spawn to help interrogate his sworn enemy, Cagliostro. He still doesn't know how Medieval Spawn found them or what this other Hell Spawn wants, but he knows the one thing standing in front of him is different somehow because all spawns have eyes of green. This is the first time he's seen anything looking close to a Hell Spawn not having an emerald stare, green eyes. More enraged to Omega, he doesn't know why it's here. It's almost as if this spawn has its own agenda and it doesn't align with Omega and it's pissing him off. What now, says Omega? You're going to assert yourself hoping to wash away your past failures? You're a reject. That's why hell threw you out and why heaven won't touch you. And hoping Plague will take the bait, all he does is hiss his response. Say something, says Omega, and Plague does it, which only infuriates Omega even more. You notice how he's growing more horns out of his head like a necroplasm horn? As Omega is growing these horns out, he continues to say that this war has begun and not all of us can coexist. Just a few of us, the strongest of us, will survive. You loners will be the first to go. Plague Spawn straightens out his body like an act of defiance. At the same time, Omega, wounded as he is, begins transforming his horns into a pair of battering rams. Then he charges full force, destroying everything in its path, everything except his intended target, who simply just levitates away, floating like some soulless god, taunting his enemy below. And what Omega does is he underestimates his opponent. Then again, Plague Spawn underestimates Omega too because he wasn't ready for the quickness, and that speed is what snatches Plague Spawn in midair. Do you hear that? As he's squeezing him, that's your bones being crushed by your boy, because with my Boja and Satan both dead, only one spawn will take over Hell's empty throne, and whoever lays claim to that title will also rule Earth. I intend to be that king. Omega might have won this, but Plague Spawn is not going to go down, so he impels it with spikes growing out of his symbiote, and he resists that claim. Now, as Spawn and Medieval Spawn are taking care of business over there, Spawn sees Omega sustain another injury. He also sees the giant reacting differently than when he received his other wounds, and that reaction doesn't bode well for anyone. Omega's powering up, something is about to happen, and Spawn's instincts are correct as Plague is tossed aside. It starts small at first, then Omega channels as much power as his weakened body can harness, his energy building in intensity until this explosion happens at the end, and that is the end of this issue of Spawn, issue number 316. I'm gonna leave a little meat on the bone with you guys because there's a little backstory after this of Jessica Priest at base. If you guys do decide to purchase this issue, support the art, support the industry, link in description if you wish to do so. This is a gangster read, and personally, in my opinion, from reading Spawn, I'm loving the story arc of Spawn issue number 314 through 317. I think that the Chain Gang story, the Chain Gang set, that's one of the best story arcs in my personal opinion. I did not say the best, it's one of the best story arcs in my personal opinion. Before we conclude the story arc of the Chain Gang set, we just gotta sum up the previous issue. The battle against the sinister Omega rages on his secret lair, but with the surprise arrival of the Plague Spawn, his inevitable victory starts to slip through his bloody fingers. And we begin this issue where we left off in the previous issue. Omega Spawn emits this huge beam as a contingency plan, and he thought he'd never have to use it. Not with Spawn already in the weakened state, but like so many others, Omega miscalculated what this Al Simmons Spawn was capable of. Add to that misstep the unexpected presence of two more Hell Spawns, both with unique powers contrasting spawns. Medieval Spawn and the mysterious Plague Spawn disrupted what should have been a simple proposition to get Spawn to negotiate with the imprisoned Calicostro. None of that came to pass, so as a last resort, Omega unleashed a move that could easily give away his presence, one that had been otherwise been hidden. And he continues emitting this beam. Spawn, you're never gonna leave this island! Each earthquake he started was meant to frighten but not destroy, at least not yet. Not while I'm standing, says Omega Spawn. Your ass is mine. And Omega Spawn is pissed and he wants Spawn's ass on the plate. He hungry. And Medieval Spawn's like, man, this brother is going wild. And Spawn's like, no, he's just sending a signal. There must be others like him. We have to shut him down. How, says Medieval Spawn. Before Spawn's able to answer that, his cape that's been protecting them from the blast begins relaxing as the maelstrom of the energy loses its ferocity. Then surprisingly to all of them, including Omega, he stops. And he's tired, and Spawn knows he's too injured to continue. Spawn's like, something's happening with this island. I'm not talking about Omega, there's something else. Our computer picked up multiple signals. It's the reason why I came here, but I can't find my answers. If this thing is alive, he goes up and just impales him and stabs him and impales him and keeps going to work. And this is an act of slaughter. Barbaric act that Medieval Spawn is witnessing Spawn doing. And when bloodlust hits that kind of fevered pitch, nothing can slow it down. At this point, Spawn is seeing all red or green blood in that case. And the only cure is time, because whatever possession that person is going through will eventually pass. And with that passing, a sense of calm and normality replaces the madness. And Spawn's like, I need to find whatever that thing was that came out of that hole. He's referring to Plague Spawn. And Medieval was like, I'll help you, but you need to take a deep breath first. And Spawn knows he needs to take a deep breath, not because of his mental state, but because he knows he's pushing himself more than he's letting on. And Spawn's like, I'm good. Where the hell did he throw that Hell Spawn? To the northeast. As they go and locate Plague Spawn, they see Monolith, and Spawn just tells them, look, leave him there. He's already done. He's done for. And then from behind they hear, as they both turn, both of them know what that means. And it's Omega Spawn, and he just will not go down. And Spawn's like, what's it gonna take to kill this thing? In other words, can anything kill this monstrosity? And before they can run, and before Medieval attempts to grab his shield to protect himself, or at least slow down the impact, it is too late. And when Omega Spawn lands that boulder on the ground, or that piece of rock on the ground, he's like, finally, I need to rest. And behind his heavy breathing, something is drifting from the pit. It comes a mile deep in a deep black coldness capable of freezing blood. It's not the whimper of a fallen foe, Calicostro, who's tortured beyond imagination. No, if you listen carefully, you'll hear something else. And its Plague Spawn, above all else, emerges from the hidden crack like a deadly snake. It silently moves across the mountain of rubble, closing in on its target, who is focused on seeing the evidence of his kills. And when Omega Spawn lifts up that piece of boulder, or that piece of earth that he smashed Spawn and Medieval Spawn with, he sees nothing but a shield, and to his surprise, he just doesn't know what to expect of it. But slower from his battle, Omega's reaction has been slowed down as well. He's unable to swat aside the chains rocketing from the ground beneath his feet. With the numbing sting, the links tighten around the fresh stab wounds on the back of his neck. The heroes unbury themselves. Medieval, my chains to Spawn, grab them and bring it down. And Medieval Spawn's like, yo man, I can't get any leverage, as he tries to bring Omega Spawn down. But that's a fixable problem. Plague Spawn, with his plaque tendrils and his symbiote, slither toward this thrashing giant, coiling around each of his legs. His symbiote coils his legs, and by the time Omega notices, it's too late. He can't untie his throat and his legs with just one hand. The two prolonged attack is executed to perfection. The Hell Spawns are about to complete their own distraction. And before he makes impact to the ground, Spawn tells Medieval Spawn when he hits the ground, cut off his head. There won't be time, says Medieval. No, we have no choice. It's our only choice. We don't gut him now, he'll alert others and they'll kill millions. You do know that, do you? Omega Spawn lands and makes impact. And before Medieval Spawn can take his sword and decapitate his head, Plague Spawn drags his prize trophy into the black abyss of the pit where he came from. Omega is about to get swallowed into the hole, and despite his struggles, despite his resistance, that ass is Plague Spawn. Nothing will stop his descent. Nothing. And Plague Spawn's looking at him like, good, I'm hungry, I'm about to eat. And Medieval Spawn's like, should we go after him? And Spawn's like, hell no, we don't know what the fuck that thing is. Whatever's down there, I have no peace, it's too much of a risk. And Medieval's like, was it a black hell spawn? And Spawn's like, no, we give off different readings. And Medieval Spawn's looking at Spawn like, you knew Omega was on this island and you came anyway. Yeah, but I didn't have a choice. You see how fast things are moving? So the ground is collapsing and they both have to get the hell up out of there. And Spawn doesn't know where to go, and he doesn't even know why Medieval Spawn's here. And Medieval Spawn tells him, I need your help. And Spawn's like, my help? You nearly killed me the last time we met. And Medieval Spawn's like, well, that wasn't completely me. And Spawn's like, what the hell is that supposed to mean? And that's a reference to Spawn issue 304, which we did do a comic book review on. You can check the card up top, and I'll put the link in the description so you can check out that review as well. So Medieval Spawn carries Spawn up out of there and tells him, for now, I'm getting you out of here. That's the deal. And Spawn's like, well, what if I don't trust you? Well, then that makes us even. So they go into this wreckage, and that casts a large shadow, and the two of them melt effortlessly into it. For them, time will tell how this relationship is going to be, but hey, if you follow this channel and you check out the later content of Spawn, King Spawn, and the Scorched, and Gunslinger Spawn as well, you know how this turns out. But for Omega, he doesn't have time. As the hole above him begins to seal itself shut, he's about to discover his powers. The thing he thought made him superior will soon become his downfall. Mixed in combination with the souls of others can create a very horrifying new transformation. And Caliciosa's like, it's begun. And this is the beginning, now that we know, reading into further Spawn issues, this is the beginning of Caliciosa's transformation to Sin, as we later discover in later issues, which Sin does lay the smack down to Spawn, but that's a whole another thing. And that just gives me an idea, I might do a Caliciosa Origins Explained video. But with all that being said, that is the end of Spawn issue number 317. I thought this is one of the best story arcs I've read. The Chain Gang set, Spawn issue 314 through 317. Link in description if you wish to add this comic book or any of the comic books in your comic book collection. Support the art, support the industry. Also, check out RatedComics.com to add some amazing comic books to your comic book collection. Cool Rated Comics exclusives. I mean, you can't get them anywhere else but Rated Comics, and they're cool to add to your comic book collection. Last but not least, don't forget to check us out on our Whatnot platform. Download the app, link in description. We do awesome comic book auctions and giveaways as well. With all that being said, Spawn issue number 317. What'd you guys think of the comic book? Comment below, let me know. And also, if you like the content we're throwing up, you know what to do. Don't be shy, don't be stingy. Here at Rated Comics, we do awesome comic book reviews, comic book related content with the occasional comic book giveaway. Thank you again for watching. Until next time.